There we are. All right. Welcome to the Governance Committee for the San Juan Charter Review, March 18th, 2021. And we're going to go ahead and open this meeting. Will go from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. We're going to go ahead and have a roll call. I'll go on my screen. Is Tony Gazelle here?
Yes.
Is Dave Dellendorf here?
David Dellendorf is here, not Dave Dellendorf.
Oh, sorry. We have clarified that. Yes.
Yeah, different names. Okay.
Richard Grout.
Here.
Janet Brunel.
Present.
And Olivia Roseberry. Hands up. And it looks like we are missing Sharon Abreu. Abreu and Jane Fuller, who hopefully they will be joining us here shortly. I always like to ask a question at the start of the meeting. What is your, I don't know if you saw on the agenda, what is your favorite warm beverage? I'm very curious to hear what,
is there anything other than coffee?
Coffee.
That's what I drink quite a bit.
What about tea drinkers? Are there any tea drinkers?
How
about chai tea? No,
that is good.
Coffee.
Okay.
Okay,
Tony,
quickly. Sharon, let's say Sharon, Jane, and Tony, what are your drinks of choice that are hot?
Coffee.
And I think young folks
decaf coffee or jasmine green tea.
Actually have it and don't even know.
Yum.
Because you don't. I mean, well, green tea has caffeine, but you don't want to see me on coffee. Like,
yeah, yum stuff. Jane. Oh, Jane. What's your favorite?
Yes.
What's your favorite warm beverage?
Tie between black coffee and a peppermint tea.
Ooh, good choices.
Oh, I like both. As a matter of fact, I drink peppermint tea at night.
Yum. Yeah, it's drink a lot of tea at night, but mostly coffee in our house with cream.
Are we going to put this in minutes?
Very specifically, yeah. No.
Although I'm dying to know what Olivia's is.
Okay, I'm going to show my Northwest here. Of course, it's a coffee beverage, but I love oat milk, Oatly brand specifically, with a little bit of maple syrup. Just,
Ooh,
yeah. So good. It's like coffee and dessert at the same time.
Yum.
Espresso, that's the only way to go.
Nice and dark, yeah. I like it white. Okay, shall we go? Have we all had a chance to look at the minutes that we received? And is there any?
It's not going to pose a problem.
Any addition comments or additions to it or concerns?
Somebody needs to mute.
Yeah. 1 second, David. Is there somebody who has some background noise going on? Okay. Yeah. Okay. David, go ahead. Thank you.
I wasn't there as stated in the minutes. I looked at near the end. It said Anderson then asked for a motion for 3 points. And then there's 3 points listed, but there's nothing about the outcome of those votes, whether there was a motion and it passed or whatever. There's no conflict here. What were I can tell you what they are.
And those are they passed. I can't remember the vote was.
Well, it was clarifying the relationship between county manager.
Yes. Yep. We know what the points are.
I actually thought the week before we dispensed with that. That's okay. Then local control, that must be the idea of giving other islands some governance, which I assume is still on the table, but it's the motion for these 3 points. So what did you decide about local control?
So no. These were points to present at the town hall. These weren't points. We haven't discussed some of these points. We haven't discussed local control. It was literally about the town hall.
Okay, so the motion was to be prepared. Okay.
Give these points for the town hall.
Okay.
So,
but we weren't present anything at the town hall.
No. It was just, these are things that are under consideration by governance. And I can clarify that in the notes.
Okay. Well, you might want to clarify that in the minutes.
Okay.
So there was no motion of anything for a final decision. These were all just,
Right, exactly.
okay.
Okay. Is there any other discussion about the minutes? Okay. Is there a motion to approve? Okay. So, okay,
Motion to approve.
okay. Any
Second.
discussion?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor, raise hand, approve the minutes.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, great. Pass, move on. Great.
I abstained.
Okay.
I wasn't. there.
So 3 weeks ago, Tony Gazelle went and met with the county manager, and he had some questions for him that he said he would report back to us. And I've asked him to come today, or to present today, what he learned from the county manager about specifically some of the ideas that he was concerned about or interested in looking at for the county manager. So Tony, can you share what you learned and what your thoughts are?
Yeah, thank you, Dave. My concern was, to start the conversation, was that there is an issue or some kind of ambiguity between the relationship of the county manager and the council. It turned out that when Mike Thomas became the county manager, they went through a lot of different learning experiences, and they finally decided on having a resolution, which is a resolution 10-2013. And that resolution became the kind of, if you will, the operating document of how the council and the county manager will be able to operate. So he sent me the copy of. Yeah, David. Yeah. You had a question?
I'm just apologizing. I had a call that came through. I just deleted it.
So what he said was that they did notice that the charter had some things, but they felt that the resolution that they passed is enough documentation to instruct everybody on how to function in the county. So he was pretty happy with that. So I asked him, the question I asked him is that, I said, how is that working for you? Are there issues that you feel that the county council is circumventing your leadership? He said it used to be, but that's all cleaned up now. And now keep in mind that this resolution was in 2013, and they've had probably 4 different sets of councils since then. The current council was not even signatories on that resolution, but looks like they're continuing with that resolution. Of course, as we all know, the resolution is not binding. It's only binding if the current council, doesn't do anything to it. If the next year's council is different and they decide to modify or change the operating procedure between the council and the manager, then that could change. The question I asked him is that, are there places in the county where the council actually is running the department? And he said no, which I felt that was actually a good way to operate, because in some of the sections in the charter, it talks about the county council managing certain departments. And so I just, after the conversation, I felt that the county is actually operating properly as it should. But he also reminded me that this is really what's called a small county kind of government, where the council is not only the government body, but also the council has some executive powers, such as the county manager will hires and fires department heads and anybody below them, but the county council has to agree to it, which is no different than, say, a school board will do, where the superintendent hires and fires, but the school board has to agree or vote on the hirees and the firees, or any disciplinary action that in this case, the superintendent brings to the school board. And it seems, according to what Mike is saying, it seems like that's what happens at the county level as well, where the manager is really in charge of anybody who is appointed and below. which I thought that made sense to me because that's the way you operate. You don't want county council members walking the hallways as it used to be, say, when I'm not picking on anybody, but like say maybe 10, 15 years ago, where county council members would get a phone call from a constituent and they go down to the department and they say, you know, my constituent is complaining about this. Can you fix it? Kind of thing. Well, that's not happening anymore. And I felt that this is really a good way to go. So to update you is to say that my fears are alleviated, but then comes down to the document that we have in front of us, which is the charter, and the charter doesn't reflect some of these things that are happening in the resolution. So I think some of the items in the charter should be deleted, and a couple of places we should rewrite the actual section of the charter to reflect the operating procedure that's happening right now, even and keeping in mind that the operating procedure that's happening right now is what it should be like in a county government. So that's where I kind of left it with him, and I asked him if when I report to you, if there are any other questions that come up, he is happy to reconnect, or he can even come and talk to us. I don't think that's really necessary because he already presented to the full charter. But if we have any questions that come up from this evening, I can always reach out to the county manager to kind of fine tune what the operating procedure is between his office and the county council. So that's where I am. That's my update. Now I have a lot of things on the charter side that need to be looked at, but I'm not sure if this is the right time to do that. So that's where we are.
David, you had a question?
Yeah, well, I suggest we dispense with this issue and agree on what we're going to do next, if anything, such as, you said there might be a need to revise the charter to reflect what's in the resolution. If I paraphrase you correctly, I think.
Well, yeah, and current practices, yes.
Yeah. But the other thing is, just to make sure I got it right, did you say that the county council has to ratify any hiring and firing of department heads only, or any hiring and firing of department heads and their subordinates? Because that's a big deal, I think.
Yeah, any hiring and firing in the county has to come in front of the county council, which is normal. Which is normal procedure. That's correct. That's normal procedure because they are the governing body, but they're also the people in charge of the county, of the elected positions. Of the appointed positions.
I think I've been at county council meetings where they did, on the agenda, they did have the hiring and firing. Well, I don't know about the firing. That's kind of a delicate situation.
Well, they're not going to. They won't say firing. They'll say so and so left the department.
Well, yeah, I don't know. They personnel matters. They don't want to go there public meeting. That's usually held out for the end when it's a private meeting. But usually if there's a new department head or maybe
let's move on.
Congratulate them and introduce them and all that. But they would have already agreed at the time, I'm sure.
Okay, let's talk to Jane. Jane, do we have something to offer? To ask?
I think Olivia had her hand up first.
Okay.
So I'm going to defer to Olivia.
Thank you, Tony, so much for meeting with Mike. Do you specifically have some ideas or have you sketched out anything on specific changes? Because if we are going to make some amendments and it sounds like you have, clearly some ideas, have you taken the time yet to, type anything out or make a formal suggestion?
Well, one thing that I did, yes, I did. For example, section 2.42 becomes moot because the title of the section is interactions with county employees. Well, if the county manager is in charge of all employees that are subordinate to his position, then that whole section could be replaced with a statement that says all county employees basically report to the county manager and the county council has no direct interaction with county employees. I mean, and I've written that way back. It's actually on the spreadsheet. So that's one item that I would say strike that Another item, and replace it with that. Another item is in section 2.31, item 2, sub-item A and B. Well, there's no reason for those two items because it's clear the county council is in charge of the county, but the county manager is responsible for anybody that's subordinate to that position. So those are just two as an example where we would need to kind of, if we decide to propose amendments to the council, to the charter, those will be the couple of the items. If not, I have a couple more, but those are the two that I would recommend moving forward. And there are a couple more. Yeah.
Okay, I think it's Jane, Richard, and then Janet.
Thank you, Dave. I don't want to make a bigger issue out of this at all, but I really think that it would be prudent for us to just get the view of either Jamie Stevens as current council member or one of the council members who's recently not on the council any longer. I think it's important to get two perspectives on this issue. And so we may not be there yet. In other words, we may want to actually craft some suggested amendments and then perhaps, run them past a council member. But I think it's important that we hear the other side of the coin on this. That's just my suggestion.
Thank you. Richard?
I'm intrigued, Tony, that the charter, what you're explaining, the charter says they're in charge of all employees. When the county was a statutory government and I was an appointed department head, the council was responsible for the hiring and firing of department heads. But when I hired and fired employees, that was my sole authority. And that was true of every department head. And frankly, I think that's the way it should operate, that you have a chain of command. And I would be in favor of amending the charter to make that clear. And I'm going to disagree with Jane a little bit. I mean, we can ask two of the council members what they think, but we're looking at a 10-year time horizon. I'm not sure how much I care what two current council members think, because I think the appropriate and proper way to do it is the council's responsible for the people who head the departments, and the people who then head the departments are responsible for their own employees. That's kind of standard procedure.
Yeah. Let me, if I may, let me just kind of respond to Dick's point. Dick's point is a good point. And to illustrate your point, Dick, if you look at the resolution 10-2013, section 5, the first sentence says, the county manager shall appoint and remove all appointed department heads subject to consent and confirmation of the county council. That's the first sentence in that section. If you go to the charter, section 4.2, it says, the heads of the administrative departments shall be appointed by the county council based on their abilities, qualifications, and so on and so forth. Well, to me, those are two contradictory statements. And that's where I would say that's another item that I would recommend that we modify the charter, because obviously the council decided in this particular resolution to do it differently. So those are the couple things that clearly demonstrate what your point is, Dick.
Janet?
So I was just gonna say, I think when the county council approves all employees, that is a function of their ultimate knowledge and responsibility to the budget and to the entire government, that they know who's being hired. Yes, we are going to approve Mary Smith, John Brown, and to be in the, I don't think they're literally, I think they're just approving those positions as brought forth by whoever the county heads are, the department heads are. So I'm not as concerned about that. Tony, the one thing I would do is I would run any of these changes by Randy just to see if there's a reason why this language was in here in the first place, to see if it's like we put this in first, this in second, just to make sure that if we're putting something in, taking something out, that he knows
Right.
what's going on.
Right. I think that's part of the process, is that whatever is brought forward, the prosecuting attorney looks at to make sure. Now, if you're suggesting to do it beforehand, yeah, I mean, I'll have to have approval from Dave and of course from Kevin. But yeah, that's a good point.
David, you had your hand up.
I think it's a good idea that Tony drafts something, so we have something specific. I have a feel for a lot of it, but it's hard when you're just explaining it, Tony, and you've got others you want to propose to us also. I want to point out one thing. You said something which I don't think is correct. The county council does not have any direct contact with the anybody below the department head. That's not really true. I mean, they come into the county council meetings all the time and the county manager is there. He's there, and the subordinates are there, and they have a discussion about something. So it's what you want is that they don't micromanage the department heads under Mike. But in terms of having contact with them, yeah, they do have contact with them.
Well, yeah, but I think the contact that's implied in the charter is more of how it happened in the older days, the 10, 15 years ago, where they actually walk the hallways. That's different than having somebody in a meeting that was brought there by the county manager as requested by the council. That's yeah.
Okay, we're going to go to Jane, then Richard, and then Olivia.
Thanks, Dave. Yeah, I think my final point on this one is simply, and when I was talking about conferring with, a still current like Jamie Stevens counselor, or a previous one like Rick Hughes or Jim Watson, all I meant there was asking them how the resolution arrangement has gone to get some perspective. Because if what Tony is hearing from the county manager is that it's working well, I think it's prudent of us to consult with the other part of that piece, if you will, and that has a different lens on it, and find out if indeed it has been an improvement since that was passed and things are running smoothly. I think that would be appropriate to ask a former or current commissioner in the person of Jamie Stevens, for example, just because he's been there so long. That's all I was suggesting.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, Richard?
I just wanted to respond to what Janet said. I think there's a fundamental difference in approving a position in a budget or cutting a position in a budget and hiring or firing a person who is in a department, and particularly when the council members no longer walk the halls and stick their noses into the departments and may in fact not know a lot about what is specifically going on with individual employees. I think the chain of command is really important, and they're responsible for the department heads, and the department heads are responsible for their departments.
I have a quick question for Jane and I think Tony. School boards. What do school boards approve and not approve? Do they approve all teachers, or is that something for just principals?
No, the school board has what's called a consent agenda. And
yeah, exactly.
in that consent agenda, all of the nuts and bolts of the operation of the district are in it, the hiring of the bus drivers and the teachers, and they are by name, not just by position. So they are by name. And the school board basically approves that consent agenda because it's proposed by the superintendent, who is the chief executive officer, in consultation with all the principals and all of the department heads. So, but the school board is the final say.
And I think that's what Tony, that's what I was trying to allude to, is I think this is probably a consent agenda item that so in school board, every single person that is hired to the point of volunteer coaches is approved by the school board. So I think probably, and I don't know because I'm not that, I think these are consent agenda items that are put on in terms of the hiring them. I don't think they're like, we're taking this person off. I think they're looking at Mike and saying, okay, here's what you're proposing. It's on the consent agenda. We are approving this. And I don't have a problem with that because it is knowledge and budgetary requirement. But, you know, and Dick, to your point, if they are going around and micromanaging who's being hired, that's a different thing. But Tony, I think this is a consent agenda item that they're, and you might find that out. I mean, that's something you might look into. It's
Right,
just-
that's a question that
Yeah.
that I did not ask, because I think at the end of the day, the county council is the group in charge of the county government. So it would behoove them to know who's being hired, and not necessarily just it's Jane Smith, but just who's been hired, you know. And
do school boards fire, or who do principals fire?
the school board has only one employee, and that's the superintendent. And that's what I'm trying to figure out,
Okay.
if the county functions like that, where they only have one employee, and that's the county manager, an
Okay.
appointed county manager.
Thank you.
I was gonna say, in fairness to school boards, if there is an issue that school boards hear about, they will certainly bring it to the attention of a super. We're getting way off course, but anyhow,
Yeah, I just
Olivia,
gonna-
Olivia needs to go
Yes,
too.
Olivia, please, thank you for waiting.
I apologize. I am eating and that's why my screen is off. So I got home at 7. So eating some food real fast, but I just wanted to agree with Jane that I think to just check what Jamie Stevens is saying, that it's working well, that we have a great opportunity this coming Wednesday to ask him specifically, you know, is this working? Is the just fact checking? And that could be an option for our governance committee to ask that question. Just an idea to throw out there.
Can I put a pin in this and just say, because I feel like we're kind of getting to the end of this conversation, that Tony's going to come up with some verbiage about possible changes. He's going to circle back around to find out how employees are hired, or, you know, in terms of the county council relationship, hired or fired. Possibly once he has verbiage, bring it to us and bring it to Randy Gaylor to see. And further questions on, is it this Wednesday, Olivia, did you say? This coming Wednesday, Jamie Stevens and Cindy will be there, that if we have further questions about how the resolution came about and whether it's working, it be brought up in that meeting. Does that sound right?
Yeah, just keep in mind that the bulk of the resolution is really more of the nuts and bolts on how does the manager need to operate, which is good stuff. I mean, it's really good stuff. But there are, what triggered my interest was that there's a few of things that are different than the charter. Now, this is, if we're ending that conversation, I have a question for you all, and I need kind of a little bit of a response, if you will. Are we done with the first part?
Yeah, sounds like it.
Okay. I have a question on in the charter, the section 2.3, which is the legislative powers and duties. And if you look at item number 2, sub-item A, basically the county council shall exercise its legislative power by adoption and enactment of ordinances or resolutions. Then it shall have the power to, and item A is levy taxes, appropriate revenue and adopt budgets for the county. I have a little problem with the levy taxes phrase. Does that mean that the county council has the power to levy any tax they want without the public's? So I would like to see if we can modify that little phrase by saying, may ask to levy taxes, as opposed to just levy taxes. I don't know, maybe I'm reading too much into it, but.
Well, procedural question is, do levies go to the voters under state law? I mean, I don't know if the county council can actually approve a levy. Does anybody know the answer to that question?
That's why I'm asking you all, because I didn't.
Well, Dick was starting to speak, but he was muted.
No, the council on their own cannot levy a tax.
Okay.
So that kind of is a moot point then, you're saying, Dick, that part of that phrase?
Well, it makes me wonder, it needs to be corrected, I would think.
So that's another item that I would like to ask a question on that. If in fact it is as it is, and can the council levy taxes without public's approval? I mean, I can understand levying a charge for a, park permit or something like that. I get that part. But to levy taxes, that's a big phrase.
Yeah.
It sounds like a very much of a grammatical thing. We could add something with in conformity to the extent permitted under state law, and then something like that, and then state law takes over. But that's one of many possible wordings that would work.
Yeah.
You want to ask Randy that?
I'd like to ask somebody. Maybe we can ask
Kevin,
Kevin would know, I would imagine, but I would like to ask somebody because maybe it's not a big deal, but it seems like it just kind of sticks there as a potentially a problem.
Okay.
And that's all
My
I have.
suggestion would be to, sorry,
Jane?
sorry. My suggestion would be to run that particular question past Randy for clarification of the wording, not Kevin.
Agreed.
I agree.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you for your indulgence. That's all I have. Unless you have any more questions, I'm happy to come back and reach out, or not. Sorry, I am happy to reach out to Mike and clarify a couple of items. And I
Thank you.
agree with Jane and others that maybe we can ask people who are in positions right now.
Thank you. I have a couple questions too, but Olivia first, please.
I have something I'd like to present for new business when we get there.
Okay, good. It's down the charts. Oh, Tony, one issue that you questioned earlier was section 2.41, which says that the council must meet at least twice monthly. And there has been some interest that maybe that is not enough. I know Mike Thomas said that they meet, that is accurate, but they actually schedule a Monday and a Tuesday. And I was wondering if we could have some discussion about that, if that's something we would.
That's why I did not go to there, because it says at least two. Because if you see the charter, there's another section in the charter where it clearly says that the council has the power to determine its way of operating and its way of conducting their meetings and the frequency of their meetings. So if you change that kind of a section, you have to change other parts of the charter. And I thought, maybe public pressure will let them meet more, but I don't know if we should change the charter to make that happen. But that's a point. That's a good point. I just did not go there because I thought they have other sections in the charter that gives them the authority to conduct their meeting as they see fit.
Okay. David?
As you might remember at the meeting when we discussed this, I volunteered to get a hold of Ingrid Gabriel, the county clerk, which I did. And she sent me an email that gave the number of meetings that were actually held in every year from 2015 to 2020. And back at 2015 and 16, there were 84 meetings and 91 meetings, which would be once a week, right? That would be almost once a week. And then it's fallen off since then, last year for obvious reasons, but the last 4 years, it's between 52 and 60. She pointed out that there's always a risk that you obligate them to meet and they have nothing to talk about. I mean, she feels like, and Ingrid has been in that position a long time. I think she succeeded Maureen. If you're going to require them to meet and there's nothing to talk about, that's kind of an onerous requirement. Although today with Zoom, it makes it a lot easier. But she was of the opinion that there's not like that business that isn't being done. I think the main concern maybe in somebody bringing this up was the public comment opportunity that is at the beginning of the meetings, that maybe you need to have more meetings just for the purpose of public comment rather than actually conducting business. Because I think we don't want to micromanage them. They know when they need to meet. They know what business is at hand. They know what they need to do to make decisions, meet and make decisions. So anyway, I'm not so sure I agree with the idea of more another requirement on them. I think we elect people because we think they're good citizens and know how to manage and make decisions. And if they need more meetings, they're going to call more meetings.
Okay, great. Tony?
Let me just say to that point, if you look at section 2.4 of the charter, item 2, it says the county council shall be responsible for its own organization, the rules of conduct of its business, and for the employment and so on and so forth. And then in section 2.41, which ends with the meeting twice monthly, it starts that particular section with the county council shall enact by ordinance rules of procedure governing the time, place, and conduct of its meetings and hearings. So there are a lot of different places you have to change if you want to change that last phrase. And I didn't feel that really we want to be that micromanagers right now. I think maybe in 10 years they can change that.
Okay, great. Jane, thank you for waiting.
Thank you. So I just have 2 points. One is I would just like to establish whether the suggestion I made that we confer with either a current counselor, Jamie Stevens, or a previous one on the issue of that resolution, if that is going to be taken up by somebody, perhaps Tony, or we ask that kind of question when they come and speak with us in our next meeting. I don't know, but what the view of the group is on that, whether we ask them that kind of question in an open forum, or whether we ask Tony if he could have a follow-on conversation along the lines that he did. I would just ask that some decision be taken on my suggestion in that regard. That's one point. My second point, Dave, as chair, is a bit of a point of order. And that is that we've thrown into the mix again this other issue of how often council meets. I don't know where that, we've talked about it before, but I'm just trying to grasp at what order in which we're dealing with issues. And because we're in an agenda item right now that's fairly loose and free in terms of if you suggested an idea, we can talk about it. But for myself, I'd like to have some sense of what we're talking about next as a committee. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, that number was one of the numbers that Tony originally suggested, and so that's why I thought it would be appropriate to bring up. So, okay, is there? Okay,
I wasn't concerned about the twice meeting. That was somebody else. That was not on my radar.
Okay, David.
Whether this was on our original list of issues to be considered or not, I would like to make a motion that we move on and that we don't discuss this like Dick proposed earlier and a couple of times, that we just drop this and we don't discuss it. We don't bring it up again and we move on. I think there's more important things that we need to talk about.
Okay.
So that my motion is that we do not make any changes to section such and such. And Tony knows what that section is. That's my motion.
Okay.
Is there a second?
Or can we just move on?
Well, if there's no second, then we move on. Yes.
Yeah. Sharon, do you want a second, or do you want to just?
In other words, there's a shift going on.
Yeah,
If France
I was
just
going to
removed
second
the funding
if
for it
that's
from the
appropriate,
health
or we
insurance.
can move on.
Yeah.
I was actually just supporting the effort to the suggestion to move on.
Yes.
Okay, great. So continuing on to what?
Sorry, Dave, I still haven't got an answer. I'm
Okay.
sorry.
say about
Can I-
I was going to say, Jane, I was going to say, suggest a new business. We discuss who we want to have come speak with us. And we could suggest of maybe get 2 or 3 people that we would like to have come, and former commissioners or counselors could be of that list. And you said Jamie and also current commissioners could be on that list. So can we wait till then? Or should we want to just go? It's 7:40. We can go into new business right now if people would rather do that. Okay.
I would just like to get through some of our lists. We've been stuck at the same
Okay.
place on this
Right.
list. And Jane, what I was going to say is I'm in favor of Tony just going ahead and talking to
Yeah.
Jamie and if he wants to report back to us what he found out from them. And also they're going to be at the next meeting and we can bring that up there as well. So we could do cross, if he wants to talk to, I don't know, Rick, and Jamie's at the next one. So maybe he talks to Rick and we talk to James about the same thing and just see how they feel about the resolution.
Thank you, Janet. I needed not make it more complicated than that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
What were you referring to? Excuse me, Janet.
It was Jane's point that we want to find out how the resolution is working for everyone. And we know currently how it's working, but finding out from Jamie and perhaps even going back to Rick, who was on.
Oh, we're back now to the resolution. I'm sorry. I
Yeah,
thought
yeah. So,
going to three
So-
meetings. Okay, never mind.
So for my, Tony,
Both,
Yes.
both Jamie and Rick have been on our signatories on this resolution, and they both have been, or Jamie still is, and Rick has been. So I think it's a good idea to bring them in, because they've been there for basically the whole tenure of the county manager.
so if I were going to make a suggestion, Tony, why don't you talk to Rick? We will ask Jamie at the Wednesday meeting. So we
Sounds
can,
good.
we can cover both bases. All of us can hear Jamie's response. You can report back on what Rick has to say. Does that make
Sounds good.
sense?
That's good. That good for everybody?
so, Olivia, do you have a quick comment or Is
I'm
your
ready
hand
for
up?
new business.
ready for news business? Okay. Should we, how about we do one or two more, get some quick discussion, a couple on the list, so we can start getting down the list a little bit, and then we'll go to new business, say at 7:50. I do have on the agenda that we want to have time for public comment, but I'm not seeing anybody on right now for public comment, so we will have at least about 10 minutes for new business. Does that work for everybody? Okay. Where I have us on the list right now is, should the county manager, not the auditor, prepare the budget? That was a issue brought up by Richard Grout. The manager currently oversees 60% of the county budget. We have had auditors, though not currently, I believe, or very little understanding of the non-elected departments' budgets, which tend to be more complex ones than they're preparing those budgets. Is this an issue that we're, Richard, can you speak to this?
Yeah, I think after some of the explanations we've heard, as long as we have some provision somewhere that says that it's a combination of the auditor and the county manager, I'm fine with that. I think it might be useful to have some language to make it clear that the county auditor cannot just act like a lone wolf, but has to involve the county manager. So if we just clarified that it's a combination of the auditor and the manager, I'm fine with it.
Okay. Any other comment about that?
I just
Um,
suggested that maybe Dick can look see if there's any language, and if there's language that needs to be cleaned up, that maybe you bring it back to us
Okay.
about cleaning
Okay.
it up.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay.
Now, in my list, the next two things I've already covered, exploring the strengths and weaknesses of county council and the number of the number of council people from 3 to 5. And we had agreement not to pick those or look at those. David?
No, I was just gonna say, we already decided not
okay.
to
So
go with the
we
strengths. of-
already voted on those two, so okay.
Yeah.
And now, Tony we discussed striking the current section of 2.42. So Tony is already working on that, and he's going to come back with us. And also, you talked about enumerating departments under the supervision of the managers. Tony.
That's also kind of a moot point, because the charter, basically, if we clean up some of the language, the charter already says that the council, if we clean up that particular section, it will fix that problem as well. So I think that should not be, I don't need to have them enumerated. We will just figure out that the cleaning up of the charter will help that language.
Okay.
So we can take that off the list.
Okay.
So Dave, can I just?
Yes,
can I
Jane.
just ask a clarifying question, please? Are you going through the list that you have on this sheet that you prepared? Okay, and so we're
Yes.
not going through this list, correct? because I'm trying to follow what we're
Yes.
looking at here, and I'm just getting confused. And
Okay.
and to be transparent, you and I did have a conversation about you're never really sort of talking us through what this
Yeah.
list was relative to this list. So I'm sorry, it's a bit of a point of order, but I need order in the way I logically work through things.
Okay.
My apologies. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm sorry. What, the way I presented this, I think it was our first or second meeting. I presented a list of issues. I took the liberty to take the list of issues that we were presented as a committee, and I put them in some kind of an organized way in terms of looking at them branches, dealing with the branches of government, then the issues dealing with the islands in terms of local government in the islands, and then addressing the boards, the various boards, and then other issues that were kind of miscellaneous to be considered. And I probably didn't do a good enough job explaining what I was presenting, and I probably didn't get enough feedback to see if that was a workable solution for us. Have you all had a chance to look at that list? I assume that that's what we've been tracking going down. Did you get that? You did not get that list of issues.
Yeah, I've seen all kinds of lists. I'm kind of like Jane. I think there's just too many lists and too many minutes, and the minutes are repetitive and stuff. I think we need to kind of go back to the original list and just check off things and document what meeting we decided that, and then just don't go back there. Like you just mentioned something about going back to the 3 to 5. You just mentioned that was something pending. We decided that 2 weeks ago. We decided that. So
Right.
it should be brought up for discussion.
Okay.
Yeah. And we discussed that. We already discussed the budget issue. We discussed
Okay.
that. Yeah,
Okay,
so
David.
I think-
Okay,
Go
thank
ahead.
you, David. I want to hear from Olivia. She's had her hand up for a while, and I need to.
I know that you want to push new business to a little bit later, and I understand that. And my new business is specifically about this.
Okay.
So I look forward to new business time.
Okay. So,
So
Okay.
Dave, what I'm hearing is there seems to be some confusion about the two lists. And I think you did a great job in breaking this down. It's a really great breakdown, especially into sort of themes. But I think, and I'm just listening, people want to work off the original list that we had that came out of the
okay.
group discussion. So I think if we can probably go really quickly through that list. It starts, with governance. It says, should the auditor and treasurer's departments be consolidated? It would be more cost effective to have one. See, I think if we just go through this and just say, we've talked about this, we haven't talked about this, I think, and then maybe put this one aside for the moment and just start working off this list.
Okay.
Does that
Yeah.
make sense to everyone? That we all have consensus on what list we're working off of? That we work off
So
the one that
Okay.
was the assignment for governance.
Okay. Yeah, we can do that and just address what we have done.
Is that the list that was modified after the town halls?
I don't think we got anything added to our list.
Yeah.
I think we
Okay.
were the only committee that we were already discussing stuff that was brought up at the town halls. And
Okay,
I can go back and look, but I don't think we had any modifications to
Yeah.
this original list. And Olivia, does that sound right? That governance had no additions? Okay.
We
Yeah,
did.
Olivia, please, Olivia.
We're dying to know your new business. Just
Yeah.
spill it.
Please.
Okay, great. I'm sorry. I
new
think I
business.
got spinach
Yeah.
in my teeth. Sorry. Okay, so can I go to new business now? Is that okay?
Yeah, please.
If it
Okay.
has to do with this.
It does.
Okay.
Okay.
So I would like to honor the request by our chair, Kevin, at our last meeting, which is that we need to be following a formula and documentation of every single thing that we discuss, when we discussed it, and if there was a motion or not. So we've done a lot of discussion for the last month, and we're kind of just treading water, and we need to make progress forward. And so the motion that I would like to put on the table is that we go back to the original Excel spreadsheet that we have. I will present at each meeting. We will formally make a motion on each thing. If we have already discussed it, then it's clear to our group and we can move on quickly through the topics. We need to document what we are doing and the motions, and we need to move through the topics to get into some kind of consensus on topics. And so I would like to make that motion that we hit the reset button and start from the top of the list and go down and make motions.
Second.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
Yeah.
David?
Yes. So Olivia, you, I think, are aware that I prepared something similar, I think, to what you're talking about. I had trouble getting it in a form that people could open, but I think you maybe eventually saw it, and I finally put it in an Excel format. Do you remember seeing that? It was for the appointed and elected committee, but I was thinking if it worked for them, it could work for the other committees. Do you remember opening that and seeing that?
Yeah,
No?
I do. Yeah.
It was, I hope that was helpful. I never got any feedback because people couldn't open
Yeah,
it.
it
But
was.
I'm gonna try to do it again. But what I called it is a scorecard where we have on one piece of paper, each subcommittee, a list of all the issues, and you can add on new ones at the end as they come about. And it shows what meetings they were discussed at and what minutes that reflect they were discussed. And then it also shows if they were voted upon and approved or not approved and what the vote was. It's basically just like a baseball scorecard.
Right.
And
Can I show you the document that I have ready to roll
Sure.
for this committee? Great. Can I share my screen? Is that okay? And we can put the motion to bed if you would like to move forward or not.
Yeah, just Janet, do you have a comment or?
No, the only thing I was going to suggest, and it is that I would like next week we start at 6 o'clock and we go from 6 to 8 and we start cranking out, going through the things we've already done, document it, and get to a place where we're ready to move on to the new things. And it gives us some time to do that. So if people are willing, maybe next week to have a little bit of a longer meeting, we can go through, document what we've done, how we got there, what the vote was, and then move into the new,
Okay,
the things we haven't done. Dick?
Richard, you have a,
Janet, would you agree to 6:30 to 8? And
That's
we all
fine.
agree, and
That's
we
fine.
all agree to not beat each issue to death, that we maybe all get one turn and move on.
100%. 6:30 is great.
okay, let's, there's a motion on the table. Is there any more discussion about, the motion is about Olivia's list, moving on from that list. Can you address that first? Is there any problems with changing to Olivia's list and adopting that?
Well, Olivia was going to show us the list. I'd
Okay.
love to see it.
Okay.
Can you see my screen?
No.
All right. My computer takes a second. My apologies. Let me know when you can, okay?
It's loading.
Great.
All right. Can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay, great. So of course, this is all editable. So across the top, we have our committee. So then who submitted the topic originally? We've got the meeting date it was discussed, the motion with some specific verbiage, and then if it was approved or declined to move forward, whatever you want to call it, we can come up with that next meeting. And then past that, we can, anyone that moves into an approved, we can create another column that says meeting date discussed again, you know, and if we can break down to 2 topics, 3 topics, whatever our committee decides to really move forward with, this will then give us all the data, just like the rest of the committees, to be able to submit to the counties. So we have a clean, streamlined process. From what I
Olivia,
understand.
Olivia, for those of us who are on a smaller screen, could you enlarge your display a little?
Yeah, absolutely. So basically it's a flow chart where you've got the topic, who submitted it. We would then put in the date it was discussed, if we can find that in our minutes, or the day that we decide to really push through and make our next meeting, an hour and a half, we can put that date as well. And what the motion was, if it was approved or declined, was it moving forward? I just put this together. It's based off of our original topics that were put together that everyone submitted. And it also includes, because I put it in here, our one topic that was given to us by the town hall. And that can be added as well. So that's what I have.
Okay.
Thank you.
So,
Is there any
Olivia-
further discussion?
well, Olivia, I
David.
want to thank you because I see you've used some elements of what I sent to you. I don't know if you were doing this ahead of me or after me or what, but I can see that this is basically what I was trying to do.
Great minds think alike.
With some slight differences, like, well, we can talk about it later, but I think it's a great motion and we ask her to prepare a draft and we can look at it. And
We have about 2 minutes left. Is there there's a motion? Is there a second? Are we ready to have a vote on this? All those in favor of this, adopting this format, raise your hand.
well,
Aye.
format as is going to be further developed by
As-
Olivia.
As is presented, yeah. And, okay, there was also discussion about extending our next meeting from 6:30 to 8 o'clock on the, for the next meeting, which will be March 25th. Sharon?
I just want to say I'm going to vote on this, but I'm actually stepping down from this committee, and Kevin is going to step onto this committee. So in voting, I'm voting for Kevin.
Okay. We're gonna miss you.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Thank you for your service here. Yeah. Okay. So is there any discussion about that? That seems like it's a good, reasonable thing to do.
The one thing is you need to advertise the change, Olivia, that the governance committee is, and I don't know how soon you have to do that, but
Yeah. I would also suggest maybe a 1-hour meeting and then an additional meeting. Like for me, it was hard for me to get here at 7, but so I would suggest an additional meeting. We don't need to advertise in the paper, but we need to put it on the website, and we need to, create an agenda as soon as possible to let people know what the changes are going to be.
Okay.
Can I
Just say, David, is there any other comment before I get to you? Okay.
Yeah,
David?
I don't agree with Janet that it needs 2 hours because she said, oh, we're going to talk about each one of those items and make sure we know where we are. We have decided on many of the items, and this is the frustration I have, is we talk about these items over and over again. I don't want to go back and talk about all the things we've already agreed to do. Those should just be checked
quick.
off, that they're already there, and we just go to the next one that we haven't decided on.
I think
So,
we're just adding half an hour.
It'll be
whatever
quick.
it is, I just want to make sure we don't get bogged down in talking over and over about the same subject every week, because we do a lot of that.
That's what we're trying to get rid of.
I'm fine at any time, on 2 hours, 1 hour, whatever. You just,
Sharon?
Yeah, I'm just
You know-
wondering, so it's hard for Olivia to make a 7 o'clock meeting, so I don't think it's good to make it 6:30. Would you, maybe having 7 to 8:30 next week would be better?
I feel like
Richard?
people get worn out by 8 o'clock. Who isn't
Olivia?
tired right now? I'm just saying, just being realistic.
Come on, you can go to midnight. You have so much energy.
Yeah.
Olivia, is that is that true for you all the time, that meeting at 6:30? I mean, is that every time that you're working that late?
I wish my schedule was different, but because I have to leave 3 hours early from work on Wednesday to be able to meet with the full commission and stick to that no matter what, I have to make up my hours at a different time. And this is it's a big couple months right now for our community and the PPP and me having 2 new employees. So realistically, I don't get home till 7.
So I
That's
think
regularly.
our
So-
options are, we either do 6:30 to 8 and we miss half an hour with Olivia, or we do 2 meetings. Does anyone have a druthers on this?
I'd like to suggest there's a third option, and
Oh,
that
good.
is that we try next week an hour format again and see how we go with a different structure of working through the issues.
Okay.
I'd like to propose that
Yeah.
before we add another meeting, because I'm meeting overloaded. Plus,
yeah.
I like Livia work full time. So I can't take another meeting in my
Great.
schedule.
Let's
So
do
I'd like to
6
suggest we just try and
7
be a
to
bit
8.
more efficient.
Yep. I 100% agree.
Richard,
But nothing else on the agenda, nothing except this one item.
the docket we're going to create.
Yes, and getting
Oh.
through it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So there's no change to the meeting time. We'll meet again next week from 7 to 8 o'clock. Is that, we're all agreement of that? And
Yes,
is that,
I was just saying one other thing. Can everyone please read the document so that if there are changes, they happen before we get to the meeting? So we're not then saying, oh, I didn't mean this. I meant that. Just everyone reads it and sends notes to Olivia like, this is
put
what,
comments there?
yeah.
Yeah, put the comments in. Great. And we're running 4 minutes over. David, might you have a motion to adjourn?
No, and I want to have a phone conversation with Olivia. Is it possible you could call me tomorrow or whatever?
Great.
No, you don't want to
Up
do
at
that.
6 o'clock in the morning?
You can
I can't.
just email too.
Can you two work it out and we make
Yeah.
it?
Well, that's why I want to have a
Sounds
phone
great.
number.
Look
So
forward to hearing about it.
I'll email you, Olivia.
There you go.
Okay.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
The call.
Third.
All in favor, raise your hand. Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
Good
Bye.
night, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
All right.
End the recording.
Let's see. Where is it?